So our next speaker is a landowner, Mrs. Karen Mauser.
Hello, my name is Karen Mauser. My husband Mike and my daughter Sonia Mauser and I own land in Nelson County in the Howardstown area. We were at the last meeting, which was held at the Civic Center here in Bardstown with representatives from Williams and Company. And I wanted to touch on a contradiction I felt they had made from that meeting. They said they were here early in the process and they came to give us an introduction to the company and they did not have all the answers for us. However, I want to read you an excerpt from their meeting of May 21st with their CEO. This is from their website. So we've studied this for quite some time. We are convinced that Bluegrass or something like Bluegrass absolutely needs to get built up here to sustain the development of the pace that is going on up here. And there are 3 different sections to this. First of all, the northern section, it's the new construction. And that will go down to Hardinsburg, Kentucky, going to Texas Gas Line, where we have interconnected with the Texas Gas Line. We've been working on that for about 9 to 10 months now, and pretty far along on the development of the routing and the environmental permitting requirements for that pipeline. Also, at their meeting on June 26th with the partners, this is the transcript notes of the Bluegrass Pipeline, June 26, 2013. This pipeline, the Bluegrass Pipeline, will connect the Marcellus Utica to the Gulf Coast, really targeting a landing down in Louisiana with large-scale fractionator and then export capacity as well. So we are in the process of detailed design, ready, right-of-way acquisition, and gaining formal customer commitments. Now that statement tells me, or seems to me to indicate that their intentions are to export. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mauser.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Amy Boone. And Amy, you might introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Boone, and I grew up in the southern tip of Nelson County. My dad is Nolan Boone. He owns a lot of land in the area. Grew up between New Haven and New Hope. My brother likes to call that area Tweenerville. So I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about a conversation I had with a land agent. After I saw stakes on my dad's property, I became very concerned for their safety. The stakes were actually going through the property, probably less than a football field away from my parents' house. It went through Natural Springs and then onto Pottinger's Creek. So I called the land agent and asked a bunch of questions because I was really concerned about the safety of my parents. He told me a little bit about the process that they go through with the surveys. They begin by contacting the landowners that they find through the PBA. He said that they do bat surveys, they do archaeological surveys, cultural surveys, and I think there was one other that I'm forgetting. I'm a little nervous. This is the biggest one I've ever spoken.
Doing good. Doing good.
So anyway, one of the key things that he told me was that the bat surveys are actually really key to keeping them on time. He said that they need to have those done by August. Otherwise, it puts them really behind their schedule because the bats have a migratory pattern, and I guess they won't be there come August. The land agent was a really nice guy. I talked to him for about an hour and a half. He said that he was hired by Williams, who works for Coates Field Services, and he said that after they do all the surveys, they go to the landowners to see what they want. So I asked a little bit about what the going rate for easements were, And he said that they have guidelines for what they can offer. He said that they can do the offer by either the acre or by the foot. And he said that when it's 5 foot, they basically offer $1 per inch of pipe. And since the Bluegrass pipeline will be 24 inches, that's $24 per foot. So in other words, if you have, a pipeline going 100 foot across your property or 100 feet, then that would be $2,400. To me, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, especially if it's a one-time offer. Not to mention the fact that it can potentially devalue your land for much less than $2,400. That really seems like a joke to me. And then he said that, I was really concerned because, obviously I don't want it going across my parents' land. And I said, well, what happens if they say no and the neighbors say no? And he said that they would basically go around. He said that there's no eminent domain, so no forcing. He said that the lawyers are still talking. I asked him about rescinding permission, and he said that that could be done. And when I asked if they would give us back the information that they collected on the property and destroy it, he said that they can't do that because they like to keep the survey information in case they do have eminent domain power and they need to come across the land. So, that really sent a bad message to me. This particular land agent, he had responsibility for sales through Elizabethtown, and that covered about 70 miles. And he said at that time they had gotten 88% of the surveys that they needed to go through and get permission and do the surveys on the land. He said, this was really concerning, he said that they want to have a center line in place by the end of August. And they hope to be starting the clearing by the end of September. So it feels to me like they've gotten pretty far along in their planning process. And they said that they would like to start construction by October or November, and that they wanted liquids to go through the pipeline by October 2015. I started to ask a whole lot of questions about safety because the pipeline was so close to my parents' house. It was also really close to neighbors' homes. And he said that, first of all, he said, I wouldn't mind if there was a pipeline going across the back of my property. And I said, well, why wouldn't you want it in your backyard? And he said, well, pipelines do burst. And I said, well, how far away would you want it from your house? And he said probably 300, 400, or 500 feet. And I pointed out that the stakes going through my parents' land was closer than 300, 400, 500 feet, and I definitely saw stakes closer to neighbors' homes as well. I asked what they did to kind of monitor the pipelines, and he said that they have some type of monitoring system where they monitor the pressure, and if the pressure leaks or if the pressure lowers in the pipeline, then they will shut off the valve from a remote location. I started to ask about, corrosion and things like that, and he said that sometimes they have something called smart pigs that's used to measure corrosion in the pipes. He said that they monitor corrosion every few thousand feet. I know that if I had, a pipeline going across my land, I would want every inch of it monitored all the time. So that didn't seem like enough to me. I also got online and actually read about these smart pigs and saw a few videos online. And basically it looked like it was some type of camera in a pipe. I really couldn't tell, by the video where there was corrosion and where there wasn't. So I'm not sure, I'm not an expert, so I'm not sure how pro pigs are at monitoring corrosion. I asked whether the pipelines were earthquake-proof, and he said that basically nothing is earthquake-proof. I then asked if he had $1 million and he wanted to purchase a piece of property for $1 million that was worth that much, and then a pipeline went across it, would he still pay $1 million for it? And he said, well, I don't know if I would still pay $1 million for it. And then we talked a little bit about eminent domain, and we kind of ended the conversation. He said, look, you know, we don't know why people allow what they do. They settle for different reasons. They have a sick child, they want to buy a new car, and people don't settle for different reasons. He said that without eminent domain, the landowner has a lot more negotiating strength, but likely does not get any more money than if the company does have eminent domain. So after that conversation, I also, before I started doing more research, sent probably a somewhat emotional letter to the Kentucky General Assembly before I really got very informed. And so I've been trying to inform myself on the pipeline since that time. I encourage everybody in the room to do as much research as you can about the pipeline, especially if you're considering having it going through your property. One of the things that I brought tonight, I brought 2 handouts. One list, it's 2 pages, a bunch of NGL pipeline accidents, and those start from like 1973 or so and go to the current day. The most current one that I could find was actually the Parachute Creek one that's mentioned earlier. And they're still trying to figure out what's going on there, and they're still trying to do the cleanup from that. Also wanted to mention that between Boardwalk and Williams, the 2 companies that form the joint venture, they have about 1,300 miles of NGL pipeline. From what I can tell, and I couldn't really get to the bottom of it, but Williams has 1,000 miles of pipeline, and it looks as if that pipeline was really just established in 2006 or so. I don't know that to be fact, but from the research that I did, that's what it looks like. The Bluegrass pipeline would double the combined portfolio of those 2 companies. So they would go from about 1,200 to 1,300 miles of pipeline today to about 2,400 miles of pipeline. So to me, it doesn't feel like they have a lot of experience. I just want to spend a few minutes going through the highlights of one of the handouts that are provided. So I'm going to read a couple of accidents that were listed in that handout. First of all, in 1973 in Austin, Texas, an NGL pipeline ruptured due to an improper weld. And there was a vapor cloud fire, 6 people were killed, and 2 others were injured. In 1975, there was an NGL pipeline that ruptured in Devers, Texas, due to previous mechanical damage. 4 people were killed in a vapor fire. 1976, an NGL pipeline ruptured in Texas, leading to a vapor cloud fire. It killed 1 person. It severely burned 4 others, who later died. It destroyed 2 homes, and it burned an area about 400 yards wide. From 1968 to the date of that pipeline accident, that pipeline system had 14 failures that had resulted in 6 previous fatalities. In 1980, a road grader ruptured an NGL pipeline in Aurora, Colorado. Firefighters barely had time to evacuate the area before the vapors exploded and it burned a firefighter. In 1987, a fishing vessel working on the shallow waters off of Louisiana, it struck and ruptured an 8-inch NGL pipeline, and it resulted in an explosion that killed 2 crew members. The divers later found out that there was only about 6 inches of soft mud covering that pipeline. It had been built in 1968, and the original 3 feet of cover had basically gone away. In 2000, and this reminded me a little of my dad because he has bulldozers, a bulldozer ruptured a 12-inch diameter NGL pipeline in Abilene, Texas. Vapors ignited. A police detective with 21 years of service was severely burned and he later died. Nearby, a woman saved herself by actually going underwater in a swimming pool. Her home was actually destroyed by the explosion. And then last but not least, I think Fitz mentioned this earlier. So there was recently the NGL pipeline leak in I think it was a little town, Parachute Creek, Colorado. That actually was a 4-inch pipeline At first, they felt that only 25 gallons of natural gas liquids were released, so they didn't notify anyone. Later on, they discovered that, that it was a lot more NGL liquids that were released. What they found was that many of the groundwater monitoring wells had found levels of hydrocarbons in the water. I think it said that it was about 900 feet southeast of the release point, and then trace amounts of NGLs were detected about 1,500 feet southeast of the release point. And as Fitz mentioned earlier, that leak was actually found by accident. On the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment website, they indicated that the cleanup process does not have a timeline because many factors can speed up or slow down that process. At a typical spill, a large proportion of the cleanup can be completed within a few years, but complete remediation of the residual contamination found up in the soil may take many years. Just came off, I noticed, I think it was in the last 2 days, there was a press release about this particular leak, and what they found out is that the workers that were hired to handle the oil and gas spill in the contaminated creek had been exposed to benzene and other hazardous materials. OSHA has actually fined the company. The company is Bargett, which is a subsidiary of Williams Company. So they are being fined. He said that, or the release said that there were serious violations. The company didn't inform the nature, level, and degree of exposure likely as a result of the participation in the hazardous waste operations. And that's really it. So, I just wanted to take a little bit of time sharing with you some of the dangers in the NGL pipeline. I know, some people say it's a private decision between the landowner and the company, but I think from reading about some of the research and how bad these explosions can be, it feels to me like it's more than a private decision because it very much can impact your neighbors. It can result in deaths. So I would just urge you to consider that before you let the pipeline come across your property.